As Mary indicated, I've told you about two of my best friends in the past, my cousin and then my parents. And now I'm going to tell you about my best friend, my God. My God has been with me my whole life. I'm only going to tell you about some critical events that occurred in my adult life. At the age of 24, I graduated from the University of California at Berkeley as a communication engineer. I had been discharged from the U.S. Army the year before. I had been married the year before. My wife was pregnant, and we were on our way to my first job in Los Angeles, California. The world was wonderful. Since we were soon to have a baby, we had purchased the main items we knew we would be needing for the baby, like a baby crib and a cabinet for its clothes and other things. We were carrying all these things with us in a trailer. Everything was fine until we reached the freeway that leads to the San Fernando Valley. The freeway is often referred to as a grapevine. I reached a part of the freeway which has a significant downward slope and was enjoying the trip until the car gave me a hard yank to the side. I immediately turned the car in the opposite direction. It gave me another yank in the other direction. I realized that I had made a terrible mistake of driving too fast downhill while towing a trailer. I couldn't continue this way. I had a hill to my right, and at first I thought I might allow the car to drag itself along the side of the hill, but I realized this would not work because there was a ditch all along the side of the road between me and the hill, and we would have been thrown against the hill and destroyed. I decided I had to keep controlling the car, looking for an escape. It went on like that for some time, and then God saved me. As we made a slight turn, a road appeared on the side of the hill, going up the side of the hill. This allowed me to drive up the road and come to a safe stop. I know God put that road there to save idiots like me who don't pay enough attention to what they're doing. As I backed down slowly to the freeway, I realized the traffic had stopped in both directions in anticipation of what might be a terrible accident. Suddenly, as I sat there shaking in my boots, I heard a voice say, "Man, you're one hell of a driver." I said, "Thank you," thinking that it was God who saved me, my wife, and our baby. Now you can see why I call God my best friend. During the Korean War, I was drafted and started out in the infantry. I hate to say it, but when the Army doctors examine you, if you can walk and talk, you're in great shape. I made it through about half of the infantry training. I learned to shoot a rifle, a machine gun, a bazooka, go on a 20-mile hike with a full pack on my back. But then one day they made us try to swim. I told the guy in charge that if I did this, I would have a raging ear infection the next day. Of course, he did not care. and he could not allow me to challenge his authority. He yelled, "Jump in!" And I jumped in. God was with me again. The next day, we were undergoing a full dress inspection. As the lieutenant came in front of me and I handed him my rifle, I heard my ear pop. I said, "May I speak, sir?" I'm sure he thought, what is this guy trying to pull? I said, "Sir, if you look at my right ear, you will see pus coming out." He looked and said, "Drop out and go to the infirmary." I went to be examined and was given a note from my company commander, which said, "This man is not to be exposed to acoustic insult." This meant no guns, no rifles, no machine guns, no bazooka. Of course, this made me useless for the infantry. So they made me a mechanic in the Transportation Corps. I became a mechanic. But whenever we went out on maneuvers, I was also a truck driver, which is how I learned to drive a 2.5-ton truck hauling a trailer filled with soldiers. This is how I learned to handle a trailer and was able to save my family on our way to LA. You see, God was with me all the time. As a mechanic, you're assigned to take charge of the maintenance and repair of the vehicles in your platoon. This amounts to about a dozen trucks, half a dozen jeeps, and a 5-ton wrecker. One day, a soldier from another platoon came to talk to me about his truck. He claimed that he was not satisfied with the job his mechanic was doing on his truck. He said that I had developed a good reputation as a mechanic, and would I please check his truck and see what I thought of its condition. I thought this was odd, but I agreed to take a quick look at it. It was my habit to put my toolbox on the fender of the truck, leap up onto the fender, and examine the engine. I put my toolbox on the fender and stood next to the fender ready to jump. But God made me look at the truck driver. He had a look of great joy on his face, and that made me realize that his goal was to make me jump up on his fender so he could claim that I had damaged his fender and he could beat me up. You see, he loved fighting. I had seen him fighting many, many times in his underwear in the snow. Realizing this, I walked around to the front of the truck and jumped up on the bumper. Now he would have no reason to hit me. You see, God was with me again all the time. My first wife, Sylvia, and I had a wonderful 27 years of marriage. And then she developed ovarian cancer. We had a wonderful, dedicated doctor named Kuping Yu, who after about 1 year began to think that he had cured her. Unfortunately, the cancer came back stronger than ever. I did everything I could think of, including going to Canada to buy several bottles of a magical drink, which unfortunately accomplished nothing. And she passed away, unfortunately. During all her illness, I had been supported by a couple named Joe and Jerry Pravella. Sylvia and I considered them our best friends. We used to visit each other many, many times a year, and we went to a San Francisco camp facility called Camp Mather every year for 2 weeks with our whole family. The way things turned out, you could say our children grew up together. My Pravella friends were always looking out for me and trying to find a replacement for Sylvia. About 9 months after Sylvia died, I decided to take a 2-week vacation, during which time I would go to Camp Mather for 1 week and scatter Sylvia's ashes there. I planned to spend the second week of my vacation at home and visiting friends. I was having dinner with friends. Excuse me. I was having dinner with friends in Aptos when I got a call from my brother-in-law informing me that my friend Joe had been hit by a car and it did not look good. I immediately went to the hospital. After being at the hospital, seeing the situation and hearing the doctor's comments to Jerry, it became clear that Joe would not make it. My youngest child was completing her junior year in high school. I decided Jerry was going to need lots of help getting through Joe's death, burial, and getting on with the business of living. I decided to volunteer my help to her, and she said she would really appreciate it. I spent about 10 days with her, doing everything I could to help her. During this time, things changed dramatically. I had always thought of Jerry as being Jerry Pravella, Joe's wife. Now I saw her as an amazing single woman, and I decided I was going to marry her. Of course, I did not say anything to her. I just never went away. I visited her as often as I could. I took our two families on all kinds of excursions as often as I could, and I kept asking her to think about her future life. She said she was going to join the Peace Corps. I knew this made no sense because she couldn't stand any insect, but I made no comment. One day we were working in her vegetable garden after some time had passed, and again I asked her, "Have you thought about your life yet?" Again she said, "I am going to join the Peace Corps." I said to myself, enough. I turned to her and said, "No, you're not. You're going to marry me and we are going to be very happy." Have you ever heard such a ridiculous proposal? She looked at me as if I were a madman, but shortly after, she agreed it was a good idea. We had 37 wonderfully fantastic years. I believe it's clear to see that God was by my side all the time. Thank you, Lord.